Cold weather flying can look beautiful from the cockpit, but it hides dangers that could turn a smooth flight into a frozen nightmare. Today, let's talk about flying safely when the mercury drops. Flying in cold weather is as much about preparation as it is about piloting skills. From engines that refuse to start, to ice on your wings, and even hypothermia, winter brings unique challenges to all aviators. Today, we'll break down the most critical cold weather flying hazards and how to tackle them head on so you can stay safe and keep more than just the grass off your wingtips. So like the diligent pilot you are, you begin your pre-flight. However, there's this invisible enemy that's on your wing. Even a thin layer of frost can turn your sleek airfoil into a stall-inducing hazard. Frost might look harmless, but it's anything but. Even a light amount of frost can disrupt airflow, reducing lift and increasing stall speeds dramatically. Frost isn't just an inconvenience, it's a recipe for disaster. So here's a few ways to stay ahead of the frost. First, inspect your aircraft and remove any frost before flying. Never assume this frost is going to blow off during your warm-up or before taking off. Before every flight, you want to make sure your wings and your control surfaces are clear of any frost before getting in. And if it's available for you, you may want to consider using de-icing fluids. Make sure that you're using approved de-icing fluids. Also, make sure that you're following your ground procedures for removing frost effectively and safely. And lastly is to avoid putting your aircraft in frosty conditions before taking off. When possible, you want to steer clear of areas that frost could form that morning, or you may want to consider parking your aircraft in a hangar overnight. Clearing frost isn't just a good practice, it's a non-negotiable step to ensure that your aircraft performs as it was designed. Have you ever had to face frost before takeoff? Share your experiences down in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Together we can keep the frost off your wings and your stall speeds where they're supposed to be. You finished up your exterior pre-flight. You're on the ramp ready for a crisp early morning flight, but your engine has other plans. It won't even start. In cold weather, your engine's gonna need more than just a spark. It's gonna need a cold weather game plan just to get started. Cold temperatures can wreak havoc on an airplane's engine. Thickened oil can struggle to flow, which is going to make it harder to start and increase the wear on critical engine parts. This isn't just an inconvenience, this is a true safety issue. So how do we tackle this? First, preheating is going to be your best friend in cold temperatures. Whether you're using a portable heater or ground services, this preheating is going to ensure that the engine starts more smoothly and puts less stress on those critical components. You also want to be patient when doing your warm-up. Allow the engine to reach proper temperatures before applying full power. Rushing this step can lead to unnecessary wear on your engine, or even a critical failure. This means you also want to ensure that your oil temperatures and pressures are in the green for your aircraft before taking off. This is going to ensure that your engine is ready to handle the demands of your upcoming flight. Want more tips for mastering cold weather aviation? Drop your question down in the comments below, and myself and the BFT community will help ensure that you're flying safely all winter long. Imagine you're cruising along at altitude and suddenly fuel flow stops. It may sound dramatic, but at freezing temperatures, your fuel can become a ticking time bomb. The cold weather can negatively affect your fuel in two different ways, either through gelling or freezing water contamination. When your fuel gels, it constricts the flow of fuel, starving your engine. Frozen water in your lines can completely block the flow of fuel, killing your engine. So here's a few ways to safeguard your fuel during these cold weather conditions. Use cold appropriate fuels or additives. Make sure that you're selecting jet fuel grades that are suited for lower temperatures, or add approved additives to your fuel if possible. Ensure that you have completely drained all water contamination. You're going to want to make sure that you're regularly draining the fuel tanks for any water contamination that can build over time. This becomes especially important if you've been in rainy or humid conditions. Also, consider maintaining your power settings. During extended descents, you're going to want to make sure that you don't reduce your power too much. Keeping that fuel flowing throughout the system continues to keep it warm, so that way the temperature doesn't fall too much inside of the system. By taking these steps, you can help ensure that your engine's going to get the fuel that it needs, no matter how low the temperatures get. Have you ever had to troubleshoot a fuel issue? Drop your story in the comments below. So we're flying along smoothly, and out of nowhere, our engine starts to lose power. No warning signs, just a silence starting to creep in. Sounds terrifying, right? This could be due to engine icing. Engine icing, whether in a carburetor or a fuel-injected system, can choke off the airflow to your engine, leading to power loss or even worse. But by following the right techniques, we can stay ahead of this hazard. Make sure that you're using your carburetor heat or an alternate air source. Most general aviation aircraft are equipped with these two, and you want to know the procedures for using these in case engine icing does occur. You're going to want to start following these steps at the first sign of power loss. And the only way to do that is by monitoring your engine performance. You're going to want to keep an eye on both the manifold pressure and your RPMs. A sudden drop in either of these or a sputtering of the engine could be a sign of engine icing. Also, you're going to want to avoid visible moisture. Flying in visible moisture, whether it's a drizzle or a cloud, is just a recipe for disaster, especially in freezing conditions. Always make sure that you're adjusting your altitude or your route to steer clear of any of these conditions. Engine icing is preventable if you will stay vigilant and proactive. Always ensure you're keeping an eye on your engine's behavior and be ready to act quickly if any anomalies do occur. What aircraft are you currently flying, and what are the steps for preventing engine icing in yours? Let us know in the comments below. It doesn't take much. Just a thin layer of icing on your wings can turn your aircraft into a rock. And this is no joke. As icing forms on your wing, your lift is going to decrease, and your drag and your stall speeds are both going to increase. Control surfaces and your trim are also affected by this icing that can make handling your aircraft unpredictable. In order to combat this problem, you're going to want to make sure that you use any de-icing or anti-icing systems that your aircraft is equipped with. Before taking off, make sure that these de-icing or anti-icing systems are operational. You're going to want to also know their functions and make sure that you're using them appropriately when you're in flight. And if you don't have these systems, then you want to make sure that you avoid these conditions at all costs. There's many general aviation aircrafts that are not certified for FICI or flight in known icing conditions. And sometimes the safest thing that we can do is just to completely avoid these areas at all costs. You're also going to want to monitor your performance and adjust your speed as necessary. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to your aircraft's performance and notice the first sign of icing if possible. If you notice that this is happening, an increase in speed can help keep you separated from that stall speed that's now increasing as well. By understanding the effects of icing on your aircraft and the rating of your aircraft, you can fly safely all winter long. Have you ever flown through icing conditions? What strategies did you use to handle it? Share those tips in the comments below, and if you're finding value out of this video, don't forget to hit that like button. This will ensure more aviators are safe all winter long. Flying through a snowy winter wonderland sounds like a magical experience, but in reality, whiteout conditions can blur the lines between the sky and the ground. This can turn a dream flight into a dangerous game of guesswork. Whiteout conditions occur when a snow-covered ground and an overcast sky meet to blur the line of the horizon. This can lead to spatial disorientation and, in the worst, controlled flights into terrain known as CFIT. If you encounter this situation, you want to make sure that you're using your IFR procedures. In a whiteout condition, your instruments are your lifeline. Rely on your instrument flight rules or IFR to maintain your altitude as well as navigate appropriately. You're also going to want to avoid flying low in these conditions. Flying close to the ground in these conditions greatly increases the risk of CFIT. Ensure that you stay at a safe altitude and plan your route carefully. Make sure you're also utilizing GPS, radar, and ATC services. These tools and ATC are invaluable in maintaining your situational awareness. Utilize these to help track your position and to avoid obstacles, especially when visibility is nearing zero. Whiteout conditions are going to demand a disciplined approach. As always, when you're following IFR, trust your instruments, stay vigilant, and prioritize your safety over convenience. Being in North Carolina, I've never really had to deal with whiteout conditions, but if you have, let me know how you handled them in the comments below. Sometimes runway snow and ice look very picturesque. However, for a pilot, they can turn a simple landing into a nail biter. Snow, ice, and slush just aren't inconvenient. They dramatically increase your stopping distance and can make it a challenge to keep directional control as you're trying to land your aircraft. This can apply to your takeoffs as well. To avoid these conditions, you always want to make sure that you're checking your NOTAMs. Review any runway NOTAMs on any airport that you've chosen as a destination or even as an alternate. NOTAMs will tell you if a runway is contaminated and what procedures you should be using. For your landings, you're going to want to prepare for lower speeds and longer landing distances. Slow down your approach speeds if possible and plan for a longer landing distance once you've touched down. Precision here can make all of the difference, so if you run into this situation, never be afraid to go around. You're also going to want to be gentle with your brakes and control inputs. Avoid aggressively braking or putting in massive control inputs, as this just increases the likelihood of loss of directional control. By applying the brakes gently, this will help you improve your traction and make sure you're using smooth controls of your inputs to stay aligned. A snow-covered runway requires you to be deliberate and cautious. By anticipating these effects, you can land appropriately and take off with confidence. So what are your best tips for handling snowy or icy runways? Share those down in the comments. And if you've learned a couple of things in this video, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. This will help ensure that your landings are smooth, even when the runway isn't. Emergency landings bring more than just operational challenges. Hypothermia can become a real threat to you and any of your passengers. In freezing temperatures, hypothermia and frostbite can set in faster than you think, especially in an emergency landing or extended exposure. Being prepared and acting quickly are critical to survival in these situations. You're always going to want to make sure that you're dressed appropriately when flying in the winter. Always dress and pack for an emergency, not just for the comfort inside of the cockpit. Layering your clothes can provide not only insulation, but flexibility in case this does occur. Also, consider keeping an emergency thermal blanket on board. These are compact, lightweight, and not too expensive. These blankets do a great job of retaining heat and can be a huge difference in a survival situation. You also want to make sure that you're avoiding prolonged exposure. Make sure that you're limiting your time outside of the aircraft. If possible, use a portable heater to help maintain a livable environment in those situations. You're also going to want to focus on the core of your body. If you or someone in your party starts to show signs of hypothermia, you're going to want to focus on raising their core body temperature first. This is going to be a key to their survival. And cold stress isn't just going to zap your energy. It impairs your decision making as well as your reaction times. Preparation is the best way to ensure that the cold doesn't take control. How do you prepare for your cold weather flights? Do you keep an emergency thermal blanket on board? Let me know in the comments below. Whether it's dealing with frost, engine performance, or whiteout conditions, cold weather flying is all about staying ahead of the elements. The elements may be a little bit frosty, but with the right mindset, tools, and preparation, you can navigate winter's challenges like a pro. Which winter tip did you find most helpful? Do you have other questions about winter flying? I'd love to hear it in the comments below. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with some fellow pilots. Let's keep building a safer and more confident aviation community. And until next time, stay sharp, stay warm, and keep the grass and the frost off your wingtips, aviators.